Welcome to the Fast Mode Tech Talk podcast series. I'm Tara Neil, and with me today is Chris Drake, SVP Corporate and Business Development at iconectiv. iconectiv helps organizations and individuals confidently access and exchange information simply, seamlessly, and securely. More than 5,000 customers rely on its data exchange platforms each day to keep their networks, devices, and applications connected and to be customers and businesses protected. Chris is a technology executive with extensive experience in information services and SaaS, including strategy, cybersecurity and privacy, product management, engineering, sales, and business development. Welcome, Chris. Great to have you on today's episode.
Thank you, Tara. Appreciate the chance to talk about this subject.
Okay, awesome. Well, to begin, how has the rise in robocalls, spam texts, and other telecoms fraud impacted both consumers and CSPs?
Well, I think we all realize we're in a pandemic of sorts or epidemic of robocalls and robotech scams. They just get bigger and bigger, and you can't go a day without seeing at least a half a dozen in your own inbox or your own, voicemail. And
Yep,
it's so
exactly.
bad. Yeah,
Yes.
exactly. And I
Yes.
haven't spoken to anyone who didn't say exactly. It's a scourge on society. And there are billions and billions of dollars lost by the consumer to these scams every year and growing.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, and it sort of like creeps into our lives, right? Without
yeah,
us realizing how many spams we handle on a daily basis.
yeah. If we were counting, we'd get tired of doing that pretty fast.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah, to the point that a few years ago, I remember the statistic was 75% or slightly under would not answer the phone if they did not recognize the caller's ID. And now we're at 80%. And I think we're just going to keep climbing unless we can, put this thing back in the box, which is a big problem for industry sectors like banking and healthcare and such, and logistics like delivery notices and whatnot. You just can't reach the consumer because you're not in their address book.
So
And
gone are the days where there was like genuine excitement when
yeah, when
you
the phone
receive a
rang.
call. Yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately, the elderly among us grew up in that era and still think they have to answer every call or return every voicemail, and they don't. And unfortunately, that leads to a lot of angst and damage, really, to such people who do engage.
Wow. Yep. So, talking about the spams and the change in experience in using our phones today and expecting calls, we know a lot of effort has been put in place in terms of security. So let's talk about that a little. So, have security measures like stir and or shaken, which were designed to stop bad actors, inadvertently hurt legitimate businesses?
Yeah, I guess first I'll want to say that security measures are broader than stir and shaken, which is how you authenticate a caller ID is genuine from the beginning, the start of the network to the end, where the consumer receives the call and sees a caller ID. There is analytics done every step of the call path in the public network, dropping calls that are malformed, caller ID or known bad actor caller ID or patterns that look like they might be spam or scams, which would include too many numbers being called by the same number in too short a period, not normal, person to person behavior, in other words. But as you said, there is some collateral damage for legitimate businesses because often that pattern I just said of many calls in a short time to many recipients from the same number is a legitimate business process. So, if you have to get a notice out because something has changed, maybe there's a new Medicare card or rule, and you're getting a notice out to your Medicare base. That's going to look like a scam because the scam for Medicare cards, where they tell you you have to pay a shipping fee, is the same pattern. They look identical when you just see the call lead number, the calling number, how many times a day you're seeing it. It looks exactly like a legitimate notice. So this is very difficult, and the analytics has to get sharper. But I'd say also, as you started with stir shake, and call authentication has to get better, has to become more complete. There are just too many ways that call authentication does not make it from this first network to the end, and the consumer, because of gaps in cross border. If they cross the border, there's probably no authentication traveling through there. Or if they're coming from a smaller carrier, which could be a rural carrier, they may have a certain way to connect into the network that doesn't support the technology for call authentication. So I think that we basically believe 60 to 70% of calls get a proper authentication. But we also see that some bad actors have infiltrated the telecom network and offer signing as a service, which basically means if you're a bad guy, you shop for a telco that will sign your call and show it as authenticated when it isn't. And sadly, there are some out there that do that very thing as a business.
Wow. So, is it difficult to pin down who's offering such services? I mean, just out of
You know,
curiosity.
I would say no. What is difficult is to do something about that. This is a very litigious country, and people are cautious about turning down traffic. There are rules called call completion rules by the FCC that say you have to process traffic and forward it or terminate it if it's your customer. And so there's a lot of caution around, if I deny them, I better have darn good reason to do so that I could justify. And it would cost me to justify if this becomes a big issue, is also a concern, right? So unless they're absolutely certain, they often don't take very prompt action. And these people continue their ill-gotten ways for many months, many months before the FCC or a state attorneys general it does an investigation and throws them out of the network. This is happening. I don't know if you saw, but the state attorneys general and the FCC combined have thrown out over 1,200 carriers registered in the public network database. That's pretty good.
Yeah,
I mean,
that is, that is.
they're probably only one third of the way along, but so that's how big the problem is. But it's pretty good. They just
Yep.
started getting quite proficient at that after, what are we in now? 2016, 9 years in. Now we're getting
Wow.
better at throwing out bad actors out of the entire network. So there's still a lot of work to do.
Okay, that sounds great though, because you know what, we have started, right? So, and like you said, we are not halfway there yet, but we are certainly moving towards that direction, and hopefully at one time, we can eliminate basically these threat actors and the
Absolutely.
manipulating network and network resources
Yeah,
to prey on people and businesses. So
indeed.
yeah, so we have some solutions that businesses have been resorting to address this. So let's look at technologies like authoritative numbering intelligence and also advanced digital identity solutions, which help to restore trust. So, what is iConnective's role here?
Yeah, I'm glad you're asking that. So we've been investing in robocall mitigation and digital identity for several years. We have at this point a broad portfolio of technologies to fight robocalls, which often are originate in the digital identity technical space. That spans call analytics, which can help with blocking decisions for bad calls. It includes KYC, which is know your customer, and vetting entities, and call authentication, of course, with stir and shake. And I think you're aware we play now at this point a central role in call authentication, being the this policy administrator, being the
Mm-hmm.
policy administrator for the United States since 2016, and even having driven a lot of the standards that were created to define how call authentication would be managed back way back in that day, 9 years ago, and even today. So the standards are constantly evolving as the threats evolve, as
Mm-hmm.
technologies evolve,
Yep.
as we discover what would work better and make adjustments, and we are at the table for those
Mm-hmm.
evolutionary steps as well. But
Mm-hmm.
we're about to launch a business entity identity verification technology this year that'll recognize the imposters and other bad actors when they try to get into the telecom network, what we call the onboarding step, when they
Mm-hmm.
apply to be admitted into the robocall mitigation database run by the FCC.
Mm-hmm.
They can be vetted, and we can help the FCC meet their KYC mandate rules
Mm-hmm.
and keep, as you just said, keep the bad actors out of the system entirely,
Mm-hmm.
rather than take months and months and months to have enough proof to throw them out and
Mm-hmm.
all the damage they did along that timeline. I think I also want to mention that we provide authoritative numbering intelligence. This
Mm-hmm.
underpins a lot of decisions about whether a consumer has been spoofed or a business has been spoofed when it reaches a consumer, because this
Mm-hmm.
fraud works both ways. And this includes things like identity validation, because the mobile phone number has become the most popular form of digital identity that people use.
Mm-hmm.
There are emails, but
Yep.
when you're asked to register for something nowadays, almost everyone's putting their mobile number in there as how they want to be contacted.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So that becomes a more and more important piece of the data in your digital identity, and
Mm-hmm.
we're proud to be investing in augmenting that
Mm-hmm.
as well. And we have a good solid base already to start there.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So, I think, yeah, we've talked a little bit about the technology side. In your experience over the years working with the technologies and also with all the parties, the users on one side, businesses, and also the regulators, right? Uh, as a person on the street, what can we do to be more aware of these calls?
Yeah,
Yeah, and what are the technologies that probably we can install on the user's end or
yeah,
use to basically identify and safeguard our time and also basically our assets and stuff from being targeted
yeah.
by the threat actors.
Those are both very good questions. Taking them like in the order you gave them to me, a consumer can be better protected if they understand the very common pattern of these scams.
Mm-hmm.
Independent of don't answer unknown calls. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's the first thing. But if you did, then you can
Yeah.
understand you're maybe about to be scammed if the caller gives you a sense of urgency that you have to act now. Maybe that's a fear of missing out, playing on the greed factor if you've won a sweepstakes or something. Or
Mm-hmm.
maybe that's fear of going to jail if you've been told you missed jury duty and they're coming for you.
Mm-hmm.
Unless
that's
unless
that's
you pay a
that's
fine.
I think that gets to everyone,
Yeah,
that
well,
second
nobody
one that
wants
you
to be
say.
put to jail for missing an envelope,
Exactly.
uh, you know. But is a sense of urgency that you have an opportunity or you're in some type of threat.
Mm-hmm.
There must be money paid very promptly, and it must be done by a means that is unrecoverable. A wire transfer, a cash payment card like Cash App, Venmo, Zelle,
Mm-hmm.
gift cards. There's now rules in most of the stores that have those gift card trees
Yep.
that if anyone's trying to cash out more than $500,
Mm-hmm.
then ask them if they are doing this at the request of somebody, and there's a number of questions. The manager may even come over because people are usually still on the phone with the fraudster when they're actually getting these cards or going to an
Okay.
ATM, whatever the case may be. And
Mm-hmm.
so you can recognize this non-refundable payment is due urgently and you're in some kind of trouble that should motivate that. This is a scam.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody
Wow.
legitimate asks you all those things or puts you in all those situations. The
Mm-hmm.
people, companies are professional. They're not out. They're not loan sharks, and so
Yeah,
those
exactly.
behaviors are very, very alike a loan shark, and that's not legitimate.
Mm-hmm.
And so they can recognize these things and hang up. But I do want to say my personal technology favorite is
Mm-hmm.
happening now. It is an AI based call assistant
Mm-hmm.
that would be able to screen your voicemails for such or beginnings of such a scam, which is normally where they'll say you may be arrested or you have a package. Please call this number. These sort of things, but
Okay.
they don't give you an order code. Every package notice you get, and you would
Mm-hmm.
remember if you think about it, has an order code
Mm-hmm.
that you got when you ordered it. So they
Mm-hmm. Yep.
use those. It's not
Mm-hmm.
random, or you're supposed to guess what package they're talking about. And an AI assistant starting to surface. They can also listen to the call in
Mm-hmm.
parallel with if you did answer though you shouldn't have, or if you're expecting a delivery, you answer. I do. If I'm expecting a delivery or
Yep.
something and a call
Mm-hmm.
from an unknown number, unfortunately I usually ask what number they'll use, but with delivery
Mm-hmm.
you can't. So I
Mm-hmm.
answer, right? An
Mm-hmm.
in-call AI assistant can tell as it's listening that you've hit all three triggers. You're
Okay.
in some kind of trouble or major opportunity. It has to be done urgently. It's going to
Mm-hmm.
take money that, or identity info or credit card info that is non-refundable, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep.
Bingo. The AI
Okay.
will quarantine the call and
Oh, wow.
possibly start talking like you, because you can clone a voice very easily, especially if you've been listening to it for a minute,
Uh-huh.
and engage the fraudster to try to ascertain more about the scam.
Wow.
And so
Mm-hmm.
these are coming up very fast. Google
Oh,
has introduced one.
I really like
Apple,
this. Yeah, I
yeah,
really like the sound of that.
yeah,
When it takes over the call and now it
yeah,
starts playing with the perpetrator
yeah,
and,
yeah,
starts
yeah,
getting as much information as possible. Or that
yeah.
we would really
And
like
some
to
of
see
them,
that in action, actually.
yeah, some of them can do that with text messages too. It's the same
Mm-hmm.
idea.
Uh-huh. All
As
right.
the
Okay.
conversation continues, it can say, aha, you are 99% likely to be a fraud, and
Mm-hmm.
quarantine this and engage. And of
Mm-hmm.
course, if it turns out not to be a scam, it can
Mm-hmm.
re-engage the user, right? So you're not
Yep.
losing
Yep.
anything this way,
Mm-hmm.
but you have a shield of sorts.
Yep. Yep. High time, actually, for
It
this
is
kind
high
of
time. It's
solutions.
great.
Yep.
Great thing about AI today is they could help you with this problem.
Yeah, forget about our generation. I mean, the younger generation, right? They just survive basically through their phones. So I can
Yeah,
imagine, from enrolling to college or, ordering things for dinner and for everything, So they're expecting a lot of calls, and then they
yeah,
do everything. They transact everything using their mobile phones, and like you
indeed.
say, their numbers are their digital identity,
Yeah,
the
yeah,
main identity, and
exactly.
thanks to WhatsApp, it's become like, I think worldwide, that's the trend. And if people are not protected and we don't have technologies like this evolving fast enough to catch up with the threat actors, then it becomes a tool of, a phone and all this communication will basically become a place where people have to be overly cautious, and that's
Yeah.
not good, right?
No, it's not right. You can either see yourself in a world with a digital twin who does
Mm-hmm.
everything for you and is
Mm-hmm.
more like even tempered, like does not get into that excited state, which is
Mm-hmm.
critical for the scam.
Mm-hmm.
Or you have an AI assistant alongside you and you are
Mm-hmm.
engaged, but it's protecting you with a shield of sorts. I don't see a lot of other options, to be honest, for the way the fraudsters have brought AI into their attacks. We have to
Mm-hmm.
step up our technology skills and respond.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Awesome. Well, Chris, I think that brings us to the end of our session. So, thank you so much for joining us and for sharing your insights, especially on the role of numbering intelligence and digital identity solutions in preventing telecoms fraud and scams.
Absolutely. Thank you for bringing this to your audience's attention.
And well, to everyone tuning in, thank you guys for listening. If you want to learn more, visit iconectiv.com. That's spelled iconectiv.com. And follow us for more updates and insights as we continue to uncover the latest in technology and telecommunications. See you in our next session. Bye bye.